Ryan, Jonathan, thanks for joining me today. A lot of great announcements this week, a lot of things that we talked about around the work we're doing with Mac and mobile. It seems Mac and mobile are really becoming first-class citizens in our ecosystem. Ryan, I'll start with you since you own a lot of our mobile engineering. Why is that happening now? What are we seeing now? What are the trends we're hearing from customers?
Sure. I mean, obviously, you can look at the trends happening in the industry overall, and the usage and device proliferation of Android and iOS. We're in the billions of those devices installed out there now, and so our customers aren't just using Windows anymore, and so we go where our customers are. We've actually had our applications, the OneDrive applications, available on iOS and Android for over 6 years now.
Right.
And so we were actually one of the first providers at Microsoft to have apps on those third-party OSs. And we have a full engineering team staffed on it and are deeply engaged with both Apple and Google to make sure we're taking advantage of the latest capabilities they have in their OSs.
We have that whole people are now working in ways that they certainly did 4 or 5 years ago. Everything was really done on a laptop or maybe on a Mac, but now, I mean, my daughter does more on her phone in the back seat for school than I can do on a laptop. Are we seeing more of a trend of people start to use mobile as that kind of preferred platform, not just for consuming content, but actually for getting work done?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think originally you saw mobile viewed as more of a companion type experience to maybe what's happening on a PC or a Mac or in the browser. But we're actually now focusing on mobile first experiences and things that are uniquely mobile that you'll want to do on your phone. And that could include annotating, providing quick comments on something in addition to just consuming content.
Digitization. And I think you and I were chatting about this, that you're seeing a large move towards people wanting to digitize their world. And well, it's actually a great leap into the new scanning feature that we talked about. So take a few moments, kind of talk about that.
Sure. I mean, obviously, the big thing a mobile phone has for everybody is it's their camera.
Yeah.
And so it has some unique capabilities that you're not going to have on other devices, and this device is with you all the time.
Right.
And so one of the things that we announced this week was some new investments we're making in our scan capability by bringing more of the Office Lens tech that we've had in the app for a little while, making it easier to discover, easier to get into that experience, streamlining the flow of capturing a business card, a whiteboard, a receipt, and saving it as a PDF in a designated location so that you could kick off additional workflow, say, after that.
Right, so scan a receipt, I need to send this to my boss, get it approved, and being able, multi-page, being able to do that at once.
Yep, absolutely.
And then camera roll. Folks have been asking for this for a
this
long
was a big
time.
one.
Yeah, we had two. Well, the SD card was one. We'll talk about that in a minute, but camera roll is a big one. Why is that such a big ask? Why do people want camera roll for OneDrive for Business? We have it for personal.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we shipped this on consumer back in 2013.
Right.
So we've had it available for many years. We actually have a large percentage of our active users on both Android and iOS that have enabled this feature. So we know it's popular, we know it's being used, and then obviously we have customers that are using both services and some that are just using OneDrive for Business.
Right.
They've got a terabyte of storage. There is a high-value scenario of just automatically getting all of that content up in the cloud.
Sure.
And you see some different use cases. Sometimes it could be a managed device where maybe it's a utility company.
Yeah, oil
and they have,
gas,
and they have
retail.
Right, and they have field workers that are out actually capturing images as a core part of their job, meter reading, retail product placement, checks, things like that, where we've gotten loud feedback that people want to have that ability. And then there's the other end of the spectrum where people really just have OneDrive for Business as their sole OneDrive.
Right.
And they commingle some of their work and personal things, and they actually want to be able to use that 1 terabyte of storage how they want. And so we're excited to bring this feature to those customers.
I'm going to add, I have a couple of friends who have been waiting for this feature and asking me for the last couple of years, so I'm glad we finally brought this here.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you're able to join us today. We did a great blog post a few weeks ago that you and Ryan did together. Ryan, you kind of digging into the new sharing experience, that we've now brought that same sharing that you see in Word and PowerPoint, Excel, and across Mac and PC, finally brought it to mobile. So now you only have to train people on how to share once, and they can do it across everything. And you really dug into some of the features which were lacking in our Mac ecosystem. Why don't you take a few minutes and kind of talk about those announcements that we made?
Yeah, so we brought the Office integration piece that we've had on Windows for the last couple of years, and enabled.
And what does that mean? The Office integration?
Yeah, the Office integration piece allowed users to co-author within the desktop applications.
Real time.
Yeah, in real time collaboration, and it's basically the idea that hey, when that file has been brought down to your local machine and opening it with your Office suite applications, that it knows that that file is backed by the cloud and really enabling enabling all those features that come along with being powered by the cloud. Real-time collaboration, version history, sharing within the application, autosave, and just like so much useful things.
Right.
Yeah.
We also talked that now the OneDrive client, when you do click to run Office, it's now part of that Mac installer. Talk about the standalone client versus the App Store client and why folks may want to move to that standalone client and some of the functionality it brings.
Sure. So the way we kind of view the two versions of the Mac App Store versus standalone, the Mac App Store is really for your ad hoc users. It's easy to discover. That's a place you get your apps generally from the Mac, right? The standalone app is really for our admins who want more power and manageability. And because it's not in the sandbox, we can actually do a lot more for your users and make deployment easier for you.
Is there any functionality that end users get?
Absolutely. So, for example, just by deploying the standalone version instead of the Mac App Store, we'll enable Open at Login by default for you.
Which is huge.
Yeah. We'll enable Finder overlays, so you'll see the sync icons, all of that, just by default. You don't need to do anything. But in addition to that, because it's a standalone application, not sandboxed, we have access to the file system, and we don't need to prompt your users with endless dialogues. Hey, can I get access to this file here, this folder here? We can just enable that for you and allow your admins to say, hey, I want to sync all my content to this specific location and make sure they can't change it.
And updates will happen automatically. They don't need to run that app updater. And
It'll be exactly like our Windows client. It's going to be silent, unintrusive, and not even bother your users.
And if somebody wants to just download that on their own, they can also do that. They can type in the Mac client. They can do that.
Yeah.
If they do that, does it automatically uninstall the App Store version, or they have to kind of uninstall one and then do the other?
Oh, no. So it's actually super simple. With the Mac App Store version and our standalone client, it will automatically detect on installation if the Mac App Store version is installed, and then migrate all their settings. So you have selective sync, sync relationship set up. All of that will just migrate over, no interruption, and you're good to go. So you can just install the new package.
That's great. So as we take a look forward at Ignite, I mean, we've all worked very hard. We've had a lot of great announcements this week that we've gone through. Any other big announcements that we didn't cover for mobile this week?
No, I think we hit on all three of the main ones with the new sharing experience, making scan more prominent, and bringing the camera upload feature to business.
But with Android, let's talk about Android and user voice.
Sure.
So user voice is huge. You've now taken that over.
Right.
We've talked about user voice in the past, and for those of you out there, user voice is where you can go and you can vote on a feature. You can upvote features, but like a third of our features that we announced last year at Ignite that we released were based on user voice.
Yeah.
So take a moment to talk about that, and then talk about the Android SD card feature, which was big on that we released.
Sure. Yeah. So user voice, like you said, I think that's one of our listening channels. We view that as a great way for the community of users that we have for OneDrive to get engaged with one another, suggest new ideas, and upvote existing ideas that are already out there. And then we as a team, as an engineering team, actually review this on a regular basis. You're involved in those meetings. Jonathan's been involved in those meetings. And we go through and we look at, hey, are there things here that we need to be delivering for our customers? And that helps inform and influence the roadmap that we actually have. One of the things I talked about earlier this week in our OneDrive overview session was we're going to actually revamp how we have user voice organized and structured to make it a little bit more manageable and helpful. As we've had user voice out for about 3 years now, and the product and service has grown, things have gotten, I don't want to say unwieldy, but it's a little harder to kind of...
It's a little unkempt.
Yes, and so we're going to do a little bit of a cleanup, recategorizing several of the items and putting them into new sections, and we're also going to revamp kind of our internal process on how we monitor and engage and stay on top of these things.
That's
and so
great.
Expect to see those changes coming up in the
And the
coming
Android
months.
announcement that we made
Yeah,
last
and
week?
so
There's a great thing about checking something and saying
it's fun.
done and
It's
released.
fun, yeah. So we announced that we have support for installing the OneDrive app on SD cards. This was the top user ask for the Android platform and one of the top 10 asks all up for OneDrive. So we were excited to get this out. So this basically will allow users that have an SD card to install the app, including taking files offline and being able to use all that extra storage on kind of lower storage Android devices that might have low internal memory. So that was super exciting. The camera upload feature for business is actually the top user voice item all up for the product right now. So
another one we get to mark up very soon.
we will check it when it actually ships. Yeah. We've said we're working on it, but no, it's fun. And so I encourage folks to get involved with that community. Know that their voice is heard when they're participating.
So one last quick thought. Any thoughts around Ignite? Because that's the next big moment for us. Any thoughts on kind of where your teams are sort of looking at, areas that you really want to focus in on, and You don't have to get too specific, 'cause
Yeah.
we want to save all the fun surprises.
I know.
like it.
We need to have people interested and curious and want to come and see us in September. But I know one of the areas that we're focused on is doing more with the capture and photo type experiences for business. So you can look at the announcements that we had this week as an early indicator of a path that we're going to go down and make deeper and further investments in the photo and kind of digitizing the real world space.
Right. And we're working hard with Apple and Android and Google and all the various companies in those partnerships to really work with them to deliver great features, but not just throw things out there, to really work with them in their ecosystems to build them in deeply. And that takes a lot of time. I know you're working on that with several different vendors right now on some different stuff. So any thoughts on things that people, or they just have to wait?
I think they're just gonna have to wait. I mean, evidently, we have a lot of successful features like files on demand, so you can expect further improvements here or there. Additionally, we're looking to give more indications to what the sync client is doing to make sure your users are well informed,
Sure.
so stuff like that.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. We'll catch you back at Ignite. Thanks for joining us today, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.